This week, the recession was finally declared over. It officially ended June 2009, but the recovery has been slow and the voters have been losing patience. With 5 weeks to go before the midterm elections, President Obama and congressional Democrats are facing potentially huge political losses. Joining me now, the president's top political advisor, David Axelrod. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
I want to first, though, ask you about something very close to what the president has been doing, and that's Middle East peace. The moratorium expires tonight.
Yes.
The president asked the Israeli prime minister to keep the moratorium on. He's not going to do it. What is going to stop these talks from collapsing?
Well, look, I don't want to prejudge what's going to happen in the next, many hours. The parties are still working. They're still talking. Secretary Clinton and her team are working with them. We're very eager to keep these talks going. We think this is an unparalleled opportunity and a rare one, and we have to seize the advantage of that. And we are going to urge and push throughout this day to get some kind of resolution.
So you think you'll manage to urge to keep the moratorium on, or is that going to expire?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details of what's being discussed, but what is most important now is that the parties are at the table. They're having serious discussions. They ought to keep on having those discussions, and we are very eager to see that happen.
Do you see any creative compromise to make that happen? The Palestinians say they would walk.
Well, I understand what the public pronouncements have been, but the parties are at the table. They're talking. They're trying to work this through, and we're hopeful that they will.
Mm-hmm. You know, King Abdullah, one of the president's main partners in this process, has said on Jon Stewart that there could be war if this moratorium expires. How do you take that?
Well, look, obviously, this is there are a lot of stakes here. And I saw that quote. I'm not going to comment on that quote, but everyone understands that these talks themselves are absolutely crucial. We're at a pivotal juncture in that region. It's important for Israel. It's important for the Palestinians. And we think it's essential that they keep on moving forward, keep on talking, keep on trying to work through these issues. And we're hopeful that they will. We're hopeful that they will.
Let me turn now to the political situation, and particularly in light this week of something else everybody's talking about, and that is the CNBC town hall meeting that the president had right here in the museum, at which one of his staunch defenders stood up and said that she was getting tired. Let me play this for you.
Quite frankly, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of defending you, defending your administration, defending the mantle of change that I voted for, and deeply disappointed with where we are right now. I've been told that I voted for a man who said he was going to change things in a meaningful way for the middle class. I'm one of those people, and I'm waiting, sir. I'm waiting.
A lot of people are waiting, Mr. Axelrod. How is the president, how are you going to jazz your electorate, your base, ahead of these elections?
Well, first of all, let's understand that we've gone through a terrible time in this country. I understand what she was saying. The middle class has taken a terrible beating, not just in the last 2 years of this recession, but over the last 10 years. We learned in the last few days that the middle class lost 5% of their income from 2001 to 2009. And of course, that period ended with the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The key here is to keep moving forward, to keep doing things that has at its core the economic security of the middle class, which is key to our economic growth, not to go back to the policies that created the crisis in the first place.
All right, but really a lot of people, I mean, people from all over the world, frankly, say to me, here comes a president with a huge mandate, a huge reservoir of goodwill, huge promises to change, and with all of that, his popularity is down. People don't appreciate some of the amazing legislative agenda that he's accomplished. Is this a failure of leadership? Has he allowed the opposition to define him?
I don't think, Christiane, that you can say he's accomplished all these amazing things and it's a failure of leadership. It was leadership that produced that. We have endured the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. It took a decade to build up to that. It'll take more time than anybody would like to deal with the remnants of it. There's devastation as a result of that. And we're working every day. And we're obviously in a different place from January of 2009 when we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. Now we've had job growth all this year, private sector job growth, but we have to accelerate that. And the president's made a series of proposals to do that. Hopefully we can get some cooperation on the other side to make that happen.
Well, the other side, as you know, has brought out their pledge for America. The Republicans are feeling very confident confident right now. And people are looking at, what happened in 1994 when President Clinton lost Congress to the Republicans then. And he actually had some advice for President Obama, which he told George Stephanopoulos. I'd like to play that right now and get your reaction.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see him say, we couldn't get out of this $3 trillion hole in 21 months. Give us 2 more years. Don't go back to the policies that dug the hole. But if we don't do better, this is the last thing. If we don't do better, you can vote against us all, and I'll be on the ballot too. Vote against us all if it's not better.
So is that good political advice? Vote against us all? Is that what President Obama will take, that advice? Will he say that to people?
President Clinton is a great politician, and I'm not in any way going to quarrel with him. I think people in 2012 will vote on this. I don't think they need an invitation to do so. I think the crux of what he's saying is absolutely right, though. When you look at that pledge to America, it is a complete echo of what was done before. It would borrow $700 billion to cut taxes for the very wealthy, add trillions of dollars to the deficits. It would unleash the special interests to be writing rules here on Capitol Hill again. And it would cut things like, there's a 20% cut in there for education. We're talking about our economy. Education is the defense budget of the economic defense budget of the 21st century, and they're basically talking about disarmament. 8 million kids would have their college aid slashed under this budget. This isn't a prescription for economic growth. This is a prescription for surrender. We can't do that.
What about one of the things that the president has been talking about for so long, and that is the tax breaks? Why did the Democrats decide to push that aside before the midterms? Well,
look, here's where we are, and you can talk to your next guest about it. What the Republicans have said, and they said it again in this pledge, is what we've said is we want to extend tax cuts for people up to $250,000 of income. That would cover 98% of the American people. They say, no, we won't do that alone. We want to borrow another $700 billion over the next 10 years to give tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires. And we're saying we can't afford that, not in our fiscal condition. And and now they want to hold those middle-class tax cuts hostage until unless and until we agree to that, and that's something we can't do.
But if you can't do it now, and you're not going to do it now, how are you going to do it after these elections, when you might have less of a majority?
I believe when these Republican members return to their districts, they're going to have to explain to their constituents why they're holding up tax cuts for the middle class. And I think it's an untenable position to say we're going to allow your taxes to go up on January 1st unless the president agrees to give tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires. This is exactly how we got into the jam we were in before. This is how they quadrupled the national debt and exploded the deficits and squandered the surplus that Bill Clinton left them.
People are very upset about the national debt and the deficits and all the rest of it right now. But also, the president talked about extending the middle-class tax cuts. Can you do that after the election?
Well, we're going to get that done one way or the other. We're going to get it done. And I believe the pressure is going to build among the American people. I don't believe Senator McConnell or anybody else is going to be willing to stand up to the American people and say, we're going to hold your tax cut hostage so that we can give another large tax cut to millionaires and billionaires that we can't afford.
Quick answers to some of the statements that have come out in Bob Woodward's book, particularly some about yourself. General Petraeus, the commander now in Afghanistan, said a couple of things, according to the book. One, this White House, they don't know who they're messing with. And another, that he didn't like talking to you because you are, quote, a complete spin doctor.
Well, look, I've seen General Petraeus in interviews with you and others, and I've always been impressed by how deft he is on TV, so I assume he meant that as a compliment.
Oh, you think so?
Yes.
Tell me how you think you're going to, and do you believe there'll be a confrontation between what the White House believes, which is to have this drawdown in 2011, and what General Petraeus seems very, very clearly to be laying the groundwork for, and that is much, much less of a drawdown, if at all, by 2011?
I think General Petraeus and everyone involved was there through this process and at the end of the process, and everyone agreed that the drawdown would begin in July of 2011, and not a trivial drawdown, but a real drawdown.
And one last question. Everybody's also talking about, reshuffles in the White House. Rahm Emanuel, who apparently wants to run for mayor of Chicago, will he leave before the midterms?
Well, look, filing for that is November 22nd, I believe, in Chicago. And obviously it takes some time if you're going to run for mayor to do it. So it stands to reason that he would have to leave earlier if he decides to do it. And that's something he's still working through.
What's your, if you had to bet, will he do it and will he leave before the midterms?
I never bet on national television.
What do you think will happen?
I think that he loves the city of Chicago. He's always believed that that was the greatest job there is. So I think he's drawn to it, but he still has family considerations to think about, and he's working those through.
David Axelrod, thank you very much indeed.